So, hello, everybody. Good morning. If you're in North America, good evening if you're in Israel. And it's really wonderful to see everybody today. My name is Neil Gold. This is my platform for Jewish learning called A Tree with Roots. And it's a real privilege to be able to do this event today on the 10th Yartzeit of my teacher, my hero, Rabbanit BRACHA Kapach. I want to say we have a smaller group than I might have anticipated today. We had about 65 people who registered for this program. There's a big funeral going on in New York right now. I'm mourning the loss of my teacher, Rabbi David Ellenson, as are many throughout the Jewish world in North America and in Israel. That funeral started right now at 11 o'clock New York time. And I know some people said that they were going to watch the recording of this event because they were going to the funeral. I just want to say I want to dedicate my teaching this morning in Rabbi Ellenson's memory. He was a very, very special soul. I never spoke with him, as far as I recall, about the Rabbanit Kapach, but I got to imagine there's some sort of cosmic connection because there was a real similarity in the generosity of the spirit and Ahavat Yisrael, the love of the Jewish people, all of them without qualification, that both of these souls inhabited. So, on to our topic for today. I'm really delighted that everyone can be here today. It's been 10 years since the Rabbanit Kapach passed away. It's hard to believe that's 10 years that we've lived in this world without her. I don't intend to go through her entire biography here today. Many of you knew the Rabbanit. And for those who didn't, her biography is available online. And it's available in several books. It's available in Danny Siegel's book, Moonbaz 2 and Other Mitzvah Heroes. It's available in online on Wikipedia and in a couple of other books. This beautiful Hebrew volume called the Zot HaBracha. And there was also, because this is what happens when you're great and when people want to remember you, there's also a children's book about her life that came out in Israel a number of years ago called Maaseh Shel Bracha, stories about her and her kindness and her goodness and the lives that she touched. All of these books kind of weave together a biographical tapestry that tell about the life of the Rabbanit. And for that matter, her husband, Rav Yosef Kapach, who is the great rabbi, the great sage of his generation of the Yemenite Jews. These books tell the stories of their childhood in Yemen, how she saved her husband, Rabbi Kapach, from conscription into the army by marrying him at a very young age. They tell about their aliyah to Israel on Operation Magic Carpet, which brought most of the Jews of Yemen to Israel in 1949 and 1950. And they tell about how she became the soul of a neighborhood, the neighborhood called Sharei Chesed in Jerusalem, the gates of loving kindness, which couldn't be more appropriate, and how her home became a place where the most needy and hurting people could go for support, for strength, for love, and for dignity. So I'll tell my story with the Rabbanit in just a couple of short minutes, and then we'll pass it on to Danny. But I met her in 1992. Like most of the great souls in my life whom I've met, I met her through Danny Siegel. By that point, she was already a legend in Jerusalem. You could say to a taxi driver in Jerusalem, "Take me to Rehov Lod." And the taxi driver would say, "Oh, are you going to the Rabbanit Kapach's house?" That's kind of how renowned she was. And on one hand, if you walked into her house, you saw on the wall her wall was covered with accolades and recognition and prizes. She was recognized for her kindness and for her gifts. I guess the pinnacle of that was that she received the Pras Yisrael, the Israel Prize, which is the highest award that the state bestows upon its citizens for achievement in their fields. In her case, it was promoting Yemenite culture in Israel. But, you know, if anyone was the antithesis of accolades and recognition on that kind of scale, was the Rabbanit, because here's the real recognition. if you sat in her living room, as I had the great honor and privilege of doing many, many times, you probably had a hard time getting a word in edgewise because the phone kept ringing or the doorbell kept ringing, and there would be somebody coming to the door to the Rabbanit for some tzedakah to get to the end of the month, or for food, or for some sort of act of kindness or compassion or love. She was legendary, of course, thanks in no small part to Danny Siegel's teachings. As the wedding dress lady of Jerusalem, we would bring them. We would collect wedding dresses from our home communities in North America and bring them to her, where she would embroider them and fix them up and use them to create weddings for poor brides and grooms in Jerusalem. We always kind of wondered. There was one time when Heidi and I went over and we had in our luggage 7 wedding dresses that we had collected from our community in New Jersey. And we always kind of like eyed each other and had like a little joke with one another about what in the world do you say to a customs officer at the airport if they open your luggage and you have 7 wedding dresses in your suitcases? But it never happened, so I don't know the answer to that question. I'll tell another story that there was in 1993, my friend Rabbi Jay Moses and I, he wasn't rabbi then, Jay and Neil had the great honor of being invited by the Rabbanit to come to a ceremony at the Jerusalem Theater where she was being awarded a prize as one of the Yekirei Yerushalayim, the beloved of Jerusalem, which is the highest award that Jerusalem offers to its citizens. And she was positively radiant that night. It was an incredible experience for Jay and I to go to this, even though it was comical in a distinctly Israeli kind of way. Like, she got this award from Mayor Teddy Kollek, the legendary mayor of Jerusalem at that time, who promptly, after giving her the award, sat down in his chair on the stage and fell promptly asleep. He must have been in his late 80s at that point. But to Jay and myself, it was such an incredible honor to be able to like enter her life in that kind of way, to be her invited guests at such a remarkable ceremony. I had the privilege over the years of participating with her in her Passover food distribution, which fed thousands of hungry and needy Jerusalemites. But it was even better than that, because in 1993 at Passover time, I had the great privilege of like being her partner. She and I, like, she took me as this young graduate student. I was in the summer of 93. I was 22 years old. And we went, she and I, door to door in some of the poorest, most impoverished neighborhoods in Jerusalem to personally deliver Passover food to each of them. And in each place we went, it's like she knew each person individually. And she would grab my arm and say, "Oh, this is a very sad story." And she would go in, and you'd see the way people would embrace her as this angel of kindness in their lives. It was really just such a wonderful privilege to me to have somebody like this in my life. And I think about her almost every day. In this spirit, I'll show you one or two quick pictures from my photo albums, and Danny Siegel figures prominently in a lot of these pictures. These are all from some point in the 1990s. Like, for instance, here's Danny and the Rabbanit in one of the big kind of machzan, one of the big closets that she had in various places with clothes that people had donated for her to give out or to fix up and to make into beautiful dresses or even Purim costumes or things like that. Below is a picture of Danny with teenagers from North America meeting the Rabbanit and giving her all sorts of supplies, presumably for the summer camp program. The person on the left is utterly unrecognizable at this point, but that was me again in like the late 1990s, and that's my wife Heidi in the picture on the right, delivering wedding dresses to the Rabbanit Kapach one summer when we went to visit her. And just so you can be amused by the image of me, but also you can see the Rabbanit in her element. And speaking of her element, here's one more set of pictures. This is one of those Yemenite weddings that she invited us to. She not only made up the wedding dresses, but she could make up the entire wedding for a poor bride and groom, including food, including music, including guests, including everything that would be needed for a Jewish bride and groom to have a dignified and beautiful and joyful wedding. Here's the Rabbanit. She's like, her head sticking out from behind here in this picture, with the family of the bride and groom in traditional Yemenite Jewish dress, which Danny and Einat, you'll tell me if I'm correct or not, but I want to say she made those Yemenite wedding costumes. Because she was, among other things, a master seamstress. She also made many of the traditional.
Brought some of them from Yemen.
Say it again.
All the necklaces and the rings she brought from Yemen.
Yeah, and you can see her handiwork in the Yemenite exhibits in the Israel Museum as well. So that's just a tip of the iceberg of what she meant to me, but she meant an enormous amount to me. And every time I would go to Israel, part of a trip to Israel would be a pilgrimage to see the Rabbanit down in her place. When I went down on that street this past summer in Jerusalem, I saw that the street is no longer called Rehov Lod, but it's now called Rehov Harav Harabbanit Kapach. And that's pretty awesome to me as well. Rabbanit, Rabbi and Rabbanit Kapach Street in Jerusalem. So that's the tip of the iceberg for me. Let's turn to Danny Siegel, who knew her much longer and much more deeply than I did, but who introduced me to her, and so many other people introduced us to the work of the Rabbanit. For this group, Danny Siegel needs no introduction. He's been part of our learning community on A Tree with Roots since we started. But I do want to say that my teacher, David Ellenson, who we're mourning today, adored Danny. And was very eager to write a testimonial for our book Radiance, which came out in 2020, the anthology of 50 years of Danny's writings and teachings. David's comment on the back cover of the book said, "Radiance is a spiritual masterpiece." And David only said things that he absolutely meant. And I know that he adored you, Danny, so much. Danny is a world-class renowned teacher of Torah, author of over 30 books of poetry and alleged humor and how to do the work of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. But more important than that, he's been the teacher to innumerable people for decades now about how we do the work of making a world marked by kindness and generosity and love and of peace. So we'll turn it over to Danny Siegel to teach us some Torah this morning in memory of the Rabbanit.
Thank you, Rabbi Gold, particularly for that low-key introduction. Let me see if I can get my view. It says speaker, but I don't see myself up there. No problem.
We see you.
Okay. Welcome to everybody. I see a number of the former people who worked with me during the summers and other friends, many of Neil's people. My part is to present some Jewish text that relate to the Rabbanit, whom I knew for 38 years. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I was probably with her 100 times. I have prepared too many, as you'll see eventually when Neil puts up on the screen, but I only want to pick one or two. Neil, put up, if you would, because I want to do the first one.
It's up.
This text is Genesis chapter 18, verse 19, which is still problematic for some of us. God picks whoever this person is. He picks Abraham, and he tells him exactly why. I selected him. Yodea there means to pick. And what he is supposed to do is instruct his children and the subsequent people. And what they're supposed to do is to keep God's way, namely to do what is just and right. Now, let's think about Sherlock Holmes and all those other people I list up there, the Lone Ranger, Sergeant Joe Friday, if you remember, Sergeant Preston Mounties, doctors, EMTs, social workers, teachers. After they have done something for the other person, even in some cases saving their life. I recall being told the story that when my brother was an infant, he had something wrong with his insides, and they found the doctor who did the operation, and my brother lived to be 77 years old. And if you were to go to the doctor, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, and you said, "Thank you for saving my brother's life," he'd say, "Just doing my job." And that's what I think would be true of the Rabbanit. Why are you doing all this stuff? Well, according to Genesis 18:19, just doing my job. And the second quote there, by the way, is not from the text. Rabbi Artson is one of the most prominent Jewish professors nowadays. I just saw him last week. And I think he said very profoundly, tzedakah is not about giving. Tzedakah is about being. If you were to ask, what is, who is she? She is tzedakah personified. Tzedakah, and I would say tzedakah and gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness personified. Now, Neil, if you'll turn down to number 5 for a second. There we go. I call this the Rabbanit's scorecard. It says, when you get to the next world, they're going to ask you 6 questions. It says, well, the verse is, Pitchu li shari tzedek, open the gates of righteousness. Le'olam haba, when you get to the next world, they're going to say to the people, Ma haya malachtecha. It's not what was your job, what was your occupation? And if the first question is Ma'achil re'evim hayiti, did you feed hungry people? So you can put a check mark by the Rabbanit for number 1. If you went to her balcony, she always had stores of food there, besides the Pesach stuff and other occasions when she fed people. The second one is Mashke tzme'im. Did you give water to who are thirsty? Now, as many of you know, it says in the Talmud, Ein Mayim Ela Torah. Water is really Torah. The Rabbanit taught Torah Shabbos afternoon at a little shul around the corner, and on many other occasions. I actually went one Shabbat to listen to her teach, and I saw the enthusiastic, they were glued to her words. It was adults and kids, and small, not 3-year-olds, but there were 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. They were there to hear her teach Torah. So that was the second question. The third one is, did you malbish arumim? Did you provide clothing for people who needed clothing? Well, Neil's picture was a very small part. She had actually, it looked like a warehouse of clothing. A number of times, my U.S. wires during the summer, their morning mitzvah activity was to begin to sort through the mountains of clothes, some of which were shmatas, but some of them were very fine pieces of clothing that people donated, and she distributed to who needed. The fourth one is Megadel Yatomim, and this is a story that eventually maybe Einat can fill in better. Once upon a time, the Rabbanit told me there was a family, it was a terrible family situation, and the child was suffering. And one of the parents, the mother or father, said, "We don't want him anymore." And so the Rabbanit took him and raised him. So that's literally raising an orphan. And who performed the mitzvah of tzedakah, using their money for tzedakah? And as I said, my notes, I have no idea what her income was. And I had no idea how much of that she gave to tzedakah, but I can tell you, I feel pretty good that she gave the fair share that she was supposed to. And the last one is, were you a Gomel Chasadim? Did you do acts of caring, loving kindness? Well, who can count? And the one thing Neil didn't happen to mention is sometimes people who knocked at the door, the Rabbanit and that person would go off into a corner and they would be in whispers. This was a person who was in distress, psychologically torn up because they were in bad shape, financially, psychologically, the family, whatever. And how many thousands of times did she piece them together in a most caring, loving way? Now, Neil, you gotta go to section 3. Nope. Oh, I lied on that. I can't remember where it is, but I'll tell you what it is. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon are there they are. No, number 2. Go ahead. Number 2, right. The Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon are having some kind of a discussion, but Rabbi Tarfon was so taken aback by the profundity of this person, Rabbi Akiva, who is considered by many the personality. You know, if you took a vote, you'd say everybody says Hillel, number 1. There are others who are Rabbi Akiva fans, but Rabbi Tarfon says to him, Kol haporesh mimcha kaforesh min hachayim. Whoever is too distant from you, it's like they're too far away from their lives, the meaning of their lives. And it comes up in a different place in the Talmud, and it says, Kafaresh mechayav. One is that you lose the meaning of life if you're too far away. And the other one is you lose the meaning of your own life. I don't think any time that I sat with the Rabbanit, there was any question what life was all about. She just exuded that intimate connection between mitzvahs and life. Now, the last one is, go down just a little bit. Here we go. This is by the non-Jewish educator, John Holt. Charismatic leaders make us think, oh, if I could only do that. True leaders make us think, if they can do it, then I can too. Now, the Rabbanit never preached nor pushed us to bring home the message that you can do it. You have the power of mitzvahs, maybe not to the extent of what she could do. I would never have had the stamina. I don't know how many hours she didn't sleep at night. Maybe not to the extent of what she did, but still, that whatever we ourselves were capable of doing, what we were supposed to be doing was mitzvahs. So in the tradition of the Yemenites, from whom I learned this phrase, when somebody passes away, you say, Menucha ta Eden. May her glorious soul rest peacefully in the Garden of Eden. Now, Einat, you can piece it all together for us.
So thank you very much,
Can I
Dan.
a word of introduction to Einat for everybody? Because Einat, I bet you haven't met a lot of the people on our screen. But very quickly, we're really pleased to have the Rabbanit's granddaughter with us, Einat Kapach. And thank you, Danny, by the way, Yasher Koach, on the beautiful teaching that you gave us just then, but also that you always and continually share with us. Let me take a second just to introduce Einat to everyone. Einat Kapach is a screenwriter and a director who lives and creates in her native Jerusalem. She's a graduate of the Malay Film School with an MA from the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem, and she lectures on film and Jewish identity in different communities in Israel and abroad. She's an award-winning filmmaker. She directed the film Jephthah's Daughter, which played at numerous film festivals around the world. She's frequently invited to lecture at various foundations, was a judge at the 2009 Jerusalem Film Festival. We're going to see some clips of some film that she made of the Rabbanit, and I'm really excited to share them with everybody here. She directed the documentary film Two Legacies, and her feature At the End of a Long Day won the Minister of Education's award for artists in the field of Jewish culture, and that script became a book during the COVID pandemic. She is also working on her PhD proposal, The Representation of the Jewish Religious Mizrahi Woman in Israeli Cinema and Television. She is obviously incredibly skilled and incredibly well-credentialed, but she's here to teach us today because she's also the bearer of the legacy of her grandparents, Rav Yosef Kapach and the Rabbanit BRACHA Kapach. So we couldn't do this today without you, Einat, and we're really privileged to have you join our community this morning. Come and teach us.
Thank you very much, and toda rabba for both of you for all, all the years that we know. And I see some people here that I met, many years ago by Savta or even in United States, which is really so hi to everyone. And I'm happy to say that also my aunt Nomi is here. She's the daughter of a Rav and a Rabbanit Kapach, and also Chagit. She's also granddaughter. So that they're representative of the family, and they can, fix if I'm doing, if there's any questions or any mistakes. So I would like to start. I will just tell you a few stories and what does it mean to be a granddaughter of these two huge, people, especially the Rabbanit, because we're speaking about her today. I think I grew up in the apartment that was just in the same yard. Upstairs, Saba and Savta used to live, and we used to live downstairs. So it was natural to be in that house. It was natural that people are knocking on the door every day and even at night. It was natural that people were just leaving many bags of clothing that they didn't want to. It was natural that people just came to ask for money or for food. And if I'll be honest, I would say that it wasn't many times so pleasant. I mean, for me and for us as grandchildren, sometimes we wanted to have like normal life, but their house was full of people all the time. And what really was amazing, that Savta most of the time was really welcomed them. I mean, I always was amazed by the tolerance and the patience that she has to everyone. It doesn't matter if they smell bad. It doesn't matter if they used to sit on the stairs and they were stuck on the stairs for 2 hours until she fulfilled whatever they wanted. She could speak to people that were drug addicts. She could speak to people who left their families. She could speak to people who wanted to listen, of advice with their, family problems. She could speak to people that wanted to know something about Parashat Shavua, you name it. Everything. She was like it wasn't just encyclopedia. She was a social worker, psychologist, producer, manager. She didn't have, she didn't afraid of anyone. If she wanted to change something, for example, she thought that there wasn't enough light in her neighborhood. It was a neighborhood with many old people. And she used to say, it's dangerous. They might fall at the evening because they don't see the stairway. Or so she wrote letters to the mayor of Jerusalem. And if she didn't get any response, she went to its office. I think it was Ehud Olmert on that time. She was knocked on the table and she said, it's not fair that the old people of Shchunat Nachlaot, of Nachlaot neighborhood, don't have a light. And the next morning, she saw workers and put like huge light next to her door. I'm saying that because she didn't afraid of anyone, but she was really had a very deep belief in God. And on her matzeva, on her grave, we wrote two words, chesed ve'emunah. You know, chesed, it's not only charity, it's I don't know, you would say better than me what the English word for chesed, it's much bigger than charity, and faith. And we always say that because she had such a deep faith in God, in Ribono Shel Olam, and in the kindness of human beings, she wouldn't be able to do everything she did. She wouldn't be able to take care of 6,000 families if she didn't have faith. You know, before a few months before Passover, she used to call it Hahar Gadol, the great mountain. You know, that the fact that she needs to feed so many families, and without you, Danny, you know, it was very difficult to do it without you and all the good people that you have been sending to Safta all the years. So, and every time we used to ask her, where do you think you will get the money for this high mountain? And she would say, God would send. And it was like really, it's like a miracle. The fact that she could do all of that, she wouldn't be able to do it without having so much belief. So I would like to tell you some few stories which I love the most. We have, you know, hundreds of stories about her, but the stories that still are touching me so much, even though I'm telling them for many years. And after that, I'll show you 10 minutes of one of the films. You know, Safta used to have in her porch many ingredients for people that she gave them on Friday, like sour flour, pasta, oil, and this what we call dry food. She used to give people every Friday. But there are people that they wouldn't have anything to do with that. For example, maybe people that don't know how to cook, maybe old people, maybe some people that don't have gas for cook, you know, rice. So for these people, for many years, she used to bring already made food. And the food that she got from a wedding hall, and she was one of the first one to start the idea that leftovers from weddings and bar mitzvah and celebrations can be given to her every Thursday night. And on Friday morning, she would give this great food to needy families. You know, it's wedding food, so the food is in a very, you know, high standard. So every Thursday, very late at night, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe Chagit Nomi would know better, the manager of the hall would come over to her house and bring her 100 meals so she can bring tomorrow to needy families. And she knew exactly which thing is going to which family, and she knew exactly all the people. So one of the great stories is one Thursday, he didn't come. This manager, he didn't arrive, and Safta was very sad because she said, what would I do tomorrow? Because many people are waiting for this food. And it was 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night, and there was no sign. And then very late, there was knock on the door, and he arrived, and he said, Rabbanit Kapach, I'm so sorry that I'm late, but all the guests finished all the food that was in the event. But I know that you're waiting for these 100 meals. So me and my staff, we stayed, and we cooked from the beginning all the meals that you need. Yeah, I'm shaking when I'm telling this story, and I'm telling you it's maybe the 300 times that I'm telling that. And I think this story, it's really symbolized Safta. First of all, her caring for everyone. It doesn't matter if we mean, 100 families. She knew everyone by heart. The other thing, this warm person, he felt that is not only will disappoint her if you won't give her. Maybe some other people would say, okay, I'm sorry, I don't have food tonight, so I will call the Rabbanit and say, I'm sorry, the people ate everything. No, what was very strong with Safta made everyone to have the feeling that it's their own mitzvah. And she used to say to people, you know, this is your mitzvah. If I would come on Friday and there were still bags with food that people didn't come to take, and I would ask her, do you want me to take it to this and this family? And she said, no, 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 this is Yossi's mitzvah. You cannot take it from Yossi. So she was really, you know, she was how do you say, a network without Facebook, without Instagram. She knew how to make people be active and feel obligated, because it wasn't her mitzvah, it was my mitzvah. So that's how she has this kind of huge volunteer army that could, each one of them felt that he's doing something really, really great. So this is one story. The other story I heard from Tzofit, my cousin, and it's a great story that I love it. You know, Savta used to cook the food for the family on Thursday night, because on Friday, very early in the morning, people used to come and she didn't have time to prepare food for the family. So one morning, Tzofit, my cousin, she was at her home and she heard a radio program. And in that radio program, there was an old man who said that he was sick and he was in the hospital, and he went back home and he is alone and there is no one to bring him anything because he was alone. And the man in the radio asked him, where do you live? He said, I live in Jerusalem. So when Tzofit heard the story, she said, like probably most of us would say, she said, oh, poor man. And then a few hours later, she went to Savta, like she did every Friday noontime. And she saw Savta is cooking food for Shabbat. And she asked her, didn't you cook for Shabbat last night? So Savta said, yes, of course I did. But I heard in the radio that there was a man in Jerusalem that he came back from the hospital and he has nothing to eat. So I went all over in the neighborhood and I asked people, do you know where this man, do you know this man? She went door after door, and I'm telling you, this is Friday. So she found him and she brought him the food, and then she cooked food for the family. The fact that she was full of energy, you know, like she could hook everything that need to be done, she was there. She was never tired, because she always used to say, if you do whatever you love to do, then you have the energy. So now I want to show you 10 minutes from a film that I made about 6 or 7 years ago. Saba and Savta were heroes in the religious educational system in the whole state of Israel. Children studied about them, children in kindergarten and until they were 12th grade, the last in high school. Everyone were studying about the Rav and the Rabbanit on each level. The students, when they're 18 years old or 17 years old, they used to study their, you know, philosophy. And the kids in the kindergarten used to study about their, you know, acts. So I did this film about Savta and Saba for schools. And I just translated, and I hope the translation is okay. 10 minutes from the film about Savta, because it's much, much, much nicer to see her and to hear her voice and to see her telling the stories. And after that, if you will still have some minutes, then I'm here for, you know, questions. Thank you. Maybe if you want to turn off your pictures, then the internet, it will be easier for you.
עוד בצעירותה בתימן למדה הרבנית ברכה את מלאכת הרקמה והייתה דייקנית וזריזה. כשעלתה לארץ היא החלה לרקום דברים נעים ומכרה את תוצרתה בחנויות. הביקוש הלך וגדל והיא העסיקה למעלה מ50 רוקמות. אולם יום אחד השתנה עולמה כששמעה אישה זקנה מתחננת לאוכל. הרבנית ברכה החליטה מאותו היום שהיא תעזור לכל אדם במצוקה.
יום אחד אני שומעת אישה צועקת, אני רעבה. אני עמדתי, נתמתי, מה זה? אדם מהכיס שלו מלא כסף, מה זה רעבה? יש רעבים בכלל? עליתי אליה, הייתה רגל עם נעל, רגל יחפה, הייתה מסתובבת מסביב לשולחן, ומורידת את השערות וצועקת, אוכל, אוכל, בדמעות יורדות. אני ראיתי, זה כמו מחזה, ראיתי, אמרתי, דודה, מה יש לך? אוכל, תני לי אוכל. אמרתי לה, תחכי, אני הולכת להביא לך אוכל מהבית. רצתי הבית, באתי, עשיתי לה אוכל חם, הלכתי, אמרתי לה, עכשיו תשמעי, והלכתי, חיממתי מים, ניקיתי את המיטה מסביב, אחר כך לקחתי גיגית, שמתי כיסא בתוך הגיגית, רחצתי אותה, הלבשתי אותה, עשיתי לה מסאג' ברגליים, הייתה כל הזמן מסתכלת, אומרת לי, ביתי, מי שלח אותך? ביתי, מי שלח אותך? אמרתי, הקדוש ברוך הוא שלח אותי. אני הייתי מאושרת יותר מה שהיא מאושרת. אני הרגשתי שהרצפה אני לא עומדת על הרצפה, אני כאילו עומדת באוויר מרוב שאני שמחה. כשנכנסים לעבודה הזאת זה כמו מגנט, תדעי לך את זה, מגנט. את לא יכולה לצאת מזה בשום אופן.
הרבנית, אותה ואת בעלה, כמה היינו עוזרים לה בתור ילדים עם המשלוחים לאנשים, את זוכרת? וואו, ילד, בוא תיקח את זה לשם, אני אתן לך סוכריה.
ברוכה נמצאת. דיבריה. פעם היה שלג כבד, והאישה קיבלה דלקת ריאות מכיוון שהמטבח בחוץ, בית שימוש בחוץ, אז התקררה. אז אשפזנו אותה בבית חולים, והבעל נשאר בבית. הוא קם יום אחד, רצה לחמם את החדר, לקח את הפרימוס, התפוצץ, הכל בער באש. השכנים צועקים, גברת קפח, בואי תראי הזקנים שלך. אני רצתי, עזבתי הדלת פתוחה, רצתי, לא ידעתי איך לרוץ. חשבתי, מה קרה להם? אז אומרים לי, בואי תראי, נשרפים. הלכתי, חיביתי את האש. אני לא יודעת איך הקדוש ברוך הוא עזר לי, לא יודעת. זה היה פלא. אני רואה משהו בפינה, אז אני מוציאה את השמיכה. ודוד, אתה פה? הוא אומר, כן, אני רוצה למות. אמרתי לו, אתה לא תמות. קיצור, הבאתי אינסטלטור, הבאתי סייד, זה צורע ומסייד וזה עשה שיש וקערה וברזים ודוד חשמל ועשינו הכל. הבית היה כולו כבר רקס, נקי, מסודר, אז אני צריכה לחפש עכשיו מיטות. אז חיפשתי מיטות, השם שלח לי 2 מיטות נער כאילו כמעט חדשים. אז השגתי סמיכות וסדינים, שמתי להם סדינים חדשים, זה כמו חתן וכלה. אז בקיצור, המיטות היו מוצעות, סידרתי אותם, האישה באה, היא לא הכירה את הבית שלה. הייתה אומרת, זה ביתי? זה מה שביתי, זה מה שביתי. זה ארמון, זה לא בית שלי. אחר כך נכנסה למטבח, והיא עושה, לא, שכנים, בואו תראו, יש לי מים. זה היה כמה שהיא עשתה גולולו מרוב השמחה. בקיצור, דיברתי בהם 5 שנים, עד שהלכו לעולמה. חברות, בוקר טוב. עכשיו בבקשה לשמוע פרשת בעלותך. המנורה היא אהבה, אהבת ישראל. תהיה מקשה אחת, כל אחד מקשה, חתיכה אחת, אסור להלחים בה. צריך אדם שיהיה בעל חוכמה. פתחתי הרבה חוגים. היה לי 27 חוגים, כל מיני חוגים. נותנת גם שיעורים, נותנת בבית ספר הרבה שיחות, במוסדות, ביישובים. כיום יש לי, שאני כמעט מטפלת, יש לי 1,400 משפחות לא יחידים, גם זקנים וגם עולים וגם מה שאת רוצה. מה שאת יכולה לעזור, מה שאת יכולה לסייע, מה שאת יכולה, את יכולה לעשות. יש לי 15 חברות מתנדבות.
זה נותן מרץ, ואת יודעת שאת מרגישה ואת עוזרת לאנשים, שאת עושה איזו פעולה, שאת מתנדבת, שאת... הרגשה טובה. בייחוד שאת רואה שאנשים באמת זקוקים ואת יכולה לעזור, מדוע לא? אם לא באים איזה פעם זה כאילו חסר לך משהו.
מסתכלים איזה שווה לאנשים, אז אנחנו שמים זה בצד, נותנים. אם לא שווה, שמים זה בצד.
מה שטוב לך, תביא לאחר. מה שלא טוב לך, אל תיתן.
ביום ראשון אנחנו ממיינות, ביום שני אז באים בבוקר ובוחרים כל אחד מה שהוא רוצה. אחר כך אנחנו בוררים מה יותר, מה טוב, מה של החלוקה ומה למכירה במחיר סמלי, פשוט מאוד.
ערכתי הרבה חתונות, ערכתי הרבה בר מצוות, ברית מילה לאותם הזוגות, זה שחיתנתי אותם. זה כוח הרצון, זה אילה. אפילו לפעמים בן אדם אין לו כוח, אבל הרצון שלך, הוא מקים אותך, הוא מריץ אותך. והחשק שאת רוצה לעבוד, את רוצה לעשות, את רוצה לתת, את רוצה לסייע. אני מקטנות אוהבת לעבוד. אוהבת לרוץ, אוהבת לעזור, אוהבת לתת. אדם אם הוא רוצה לעשות עבודה כזאת, הוא מקדיש את החיים. אחרת זה לא ילך.
הייתי מחלקת בגדים, הייתי מחלקת כסף. אז החלטנו להתחיל לתת לפסח. השנה הזאת 40 שנה לחלוקת קמחת ופסחא. אנחנו מחלקים ל5,700. בפעם הראשונה זה היה 60. ואחר כך לאט התרבו עד שנהיה 5,700. אלה שאני רושמת אותם, אני מכירה אותם, אני 40 שנה עובדת. אז אני מכירה אותם ככף היד. יש הרבה חיתנתי ויש הרבה מטפלת בהם, ויש כל מיני... יש הרבה משוגעים, אם אין משוגעים כאלה לא יהיה קיים כל זה.
היא אמא, אחות, אבא ושכנה, וכל טוב, ושל כולנו היא הכי טוב.
כל טוב, לבריאות. כל טוב.
בשביל הבריאות שלמה ירבה.
אמן. אני נהנית שהאנשים נהנו, זה הכל. לאט ירוחי. אם קשה לך שניים, וככה אחד. מה שהם עושים אפילו בלי לברך אותם, השם כבר מברך אותם. ריבונו של עולם, אני עוזרת לילדים שלך, תעזור לי. הוא עוזר לי.
אני מתחילה לחשוב, מה עשיתי היום? וואי, באמת ספקתי הרבה.
So it's a warm regards from Savta, from her voice, from her vital eyes, and whoever met her, I think, or even if not, to hear her voice, and she's still alive. I would say two short things, and then whatever you want, Neil. When people used to ask her, how did you start everything? First of all, she used to say she started with her mother. Her mother taught her to give tzedakah. But there's one sentence her mother put on her, and I think this was really, really something very strong in her life. When they came to Israel, and she has a kind of a factory, she had 50 workers, so they made, how do you say rikma? Not knitting.
Embroidery.
Embroidery, yeah, it's a hard word to say, embroidery. So one day, people asked her for many, many things to make, and these women worked with Savta for about a month. And then she got a phone call that they are not coming to get the things, and it's canceled. So Savta used to say that she was very crying. And because she said, how would I pay for all the women that just work? And her mother, Naomi, that used to sit inside in the room, she said to Savta, don't cry, stand next to the mezuzah and pray for God. And when God closes one door, he opens 10. And this is really something that was so strong with Savta, that never say never. There is always something that can be open, and the miracle and the good thing and God's help will always come. And she saw it, day by day. And the last thing that I want to say, because of the very tense situation that we are in Israel these days, that Savta loved the soldiers and Tzahal, IDF soldiers, very, very much. And several occasions, if she could, volunteer for them with group of people, she used to do it. And if she once, they asked her from, how do you say, Handasa engineering corps, to embroider their flag of the unit. So she used to make it, and it was very, very nice. And after that, they asked her, how much do we pay you? And she say, you will never pay me. I'm never taking money from Tzahal. And she always used to pray for them. And I always, these days, I'm always thinking of her, and I'm saying to myself that I'm sure that somewhere in heaven, she's sending so much prayer and so much blessing and so much light for the nation of Israel, and especially for our soldiers. So this was, very short and very little about Savta, but it seems like our time is running. So back to you, Danny and Neil, and thank you very much.
First of all, Einat, that was awesome. The film is amazing. I have so many photos of her, but to see the film of her on my computer screen, I felt like I could reach out and touch her again. And it just moves me so deeply to see that film of her on my computer screen and to hear the stories that you share with her.
Thank you. And we would love to get all the photos that you have with her. Everyone, if you have photos with her, please send us if it's okay with you. It's very touching for us.
I'm also really grateful that you finished with that story about Israel today and about her love for the soldiers, because as I told you, we're thinking about you and all of our Israeli friends and family and just nonstop. I was remiss at the beginning, but to say I'm really grateful that members of your family are here with us today. And here's what I'd like to do. I have one more story I want to share. Then I want to say farewell and turn the recording off. But anyone who would like to stay on the screen for a little while and share a few more stories, because I'm looking around the gallery and I know there are a lot of people here who have Rabbanit stories. I've got some time, and I'm glad to invite people to stay and share some stories of their own. Let me share just one more of mine. And that is one time my wife Heidi and I went to visit with her. It was late summer 1999. and Heidi and I have been married for about 2 years. And one of the things I just loved about being in the Rabbanit's presence was this sense of spirituality, the sense of connection to the divine and connection to one another, just this sense of redefined purpose that I know I felt and lots of other people felt to be in her presence, doing mitzvahs. That's what it's all about. And when we left, she blessed us because that's what she was always doing. She was giving brachot. And Heidi and I, at that point, we'd been married for 2 years, and we'd been trying for a while to have children. And we were waiting, but we hadn't been successful yet. And she knew that, and she blessed Heidi that she should have many children, and that she should give birth to a son. And I don't know how you feel about these things. I don't know how I feel about these things. All I know is our son Avi was born about exactly 9 months later. And she was a bracha to thousands, to innumerable people, but I was one of those people.
My story with the brachot is there were long brachot. And sometimes I would call her, or she would call me at the end of any conversation, just want to give a bracha. And I joked with her that when she started, I would go into the kitchen and make a sandwich, and I came back, and then she'd still be wrapping it up. I told her, or I'd make a cup of coffee, and she liked that. She had a very, Einat, maybe you could tell her that you felt yourself to had a certain childlike quality about her.
Again, sorry.
That you and some of the other grandchildren said she had a very childlike quality about her.
Right. I think you could see on her eyes that I don't know, in Hebrew we would say nefesh yaldatit, that she used to be amazed of the world all the time. If she went abroad, she would be her eyes would be open, and she would say, look how beautiful the world is. Like little child that is really happy of everything he sees. And she was a little child, but she was really, her feeling was fresh. Everything she met, it was like from the beginning. And that's what we mean, that she was was like a child, that everything is really, she was curious, she had curiosity about everything, and every meeting is a new meeting. So she loved to see everything, like start every day all over again, not in a heavy energy, but the other side.
No, but you're right. I could see it in her eyes very often. Yeah.
So I propose that I turn off the recording at this point and say thank you to everybody. But anyone who'd like to stay on and share some stories of their own, and I know there are many here, I'd like to continue to do that. So first, I'll wish everybody happy Hanukkah. Thank you for being here with us. We'll say Shalom al Yisrael. And in the words of the Rabbanit, Nizkel mitzvot, that we should merit the opportunity to do many, many mitzvot together in the future. Thanks everyone for being here.